Hello and welcome to the history of the USS Illinois BB-65. The USS Illinois was an uncompleted battleship originally intended to be the first of the Montana class. However, the urgent need for more warships at the outbreak of World War II and the U.S. Navy's experience in the Pacific theater led it to conclude that rather than battleships larger and more heavily armed than the Iowa class, it quickly needed more fast battleships of that to escort the new Essex-class aircraft carriers being built. As a result, Hull's BB-65 and BB-66 were reordered and laid down as Iowa-class battleships in 1942. As such, she was intended to be the fifth member of the Iowa class constructed, and the fourth Navy ship to be named in the honor of the 21st state. Compared to the Montana-class design, which would have originally been ordered as the BB-65, Illinois would have gained 8 knots in speed, carried more 20mm and 40mm anti-aircraft guns, and been able to transit the locks of the Panama Canal. However, construction of the BB-65 as an Iowa-class battleship also left her with a reduction in her main battery from 12 16-inch guns to 9, and without the additional armor that she was planned for. Like her sister ship, the USS Kentucky BB-66, Illinois was still under construction at the end of World War II. The passage of the Second Vision Act in 1938 cleared the way for construction for the 4th South Dakota-class battleships and the first 2 Iowa-class fast battleships. Hull numbers BB-63 and BB-64, cleared for construction in 1940, were to have been the final members of the Iowa class, while the BB-65 and BB-66, also cleared in 1940, were intended to be the first ships of the larger, more heavily armed Montana class. Originally, the Montanas were designed to return to the United States Navy traditional battleship philosophy of maximum firepower and armor. Considerations were also given to counter the new battleships of the Empire of Japan, eventually known to be the Yamato-class battleships, whose constructions were shrouded in secrecy. Furthermore, rumors of Japanese ships' ability to carry guns of up to 18-inch were known at the time to be the highest-ranking members of the United States Navy. To achieve these goals, the United States Navy began designing a 45,000-ton slow battleship with a maximum speed of 27 to 28 knots and an intended main battery of 12 16-inch guns, 3 more than the Iowa class. This battleship design took shape in the late 1930s and early 1940s, and evolved into the 60,500 long-ton Montana class. She would also have a more powerful second battery of 5-inch 54 caliber Mark 16 dual-purpose mounts, and an increase in armor designed to enable her to withstand the effects of enemy guns comparable to her own. The increase in the Montana's firepower and armor came at the expense of her high speed and ability to utilize the Panama Canal, but transit between the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans without having to round South America would have been eliminated through the construction of a third, much wider set of locks there. As the situation in Europe deteriorated in the late 1930s, concern arose of the possibility of the canal being put out of action by enemy bombing. Nevertheless, in 1930, construction began on wider locks. After the successes of carrier combat, achieving air supremacy in both 1942's Battle of Coral Sea and, to a greater extent, the Battle of Midway, the Navy was forced to shift its building focus from the battleships to aircraft carriers. As a result, construction of the fleet of the Essex-class aircraft carriers had been given the highest priority. In the process, the United States found the high speed of 33 knots of the Iowa class viable. This allowed them to steam with the Essex class while providing the carriers with maximum anti-aircraft protection. When BB-65 was redesignated an Iowa class, she was assigned the name Illinois and reconfigured to adhere to the fast battleship design plans in 1938 by the Preliminary Design Branch of the Bureau of Construction and Repair. Her funding was authorized via the passage of the Two Navy Act by the United States Congress on July 19, 1940, and she would now be the 5th Iowa-class built for the United States Navy. Her contract was signed on September 9, 1940, the same date as the USS Kentucky. Illinois' keel was laid down at the Philadelphia Naval Yards on December 6, 1942. Her projected completion date was May 1, 1945. This amounted to construction time of about 30 months. Based on wartime experience, she would have been tasked primarily with the defense of the U.S. fleet of Essex-class aircraft carriers in adherence with the Iowa-class design. Illinois would have a maximum beam of 108 feet 2 inches and a waterline length of 860 feet, permitting a maximum speed of 33 knots, or 38 miles an hour. Unlike the Iowa classes from Missouri, hull number BB-63 onward, the frontal bulkhead armor was increased from the original 11.3 inches to 14.5 inches in order to better protect against enemy fire from frontal sectors. Furthermore, like Kentucky, Illinois differed from her earlier sister ships in that her design called for an all-welded construction, which would have saved weight due to the increased strength over a combination of rivet-welded hull sections on the 4 completed Iowas. Additionally, engineers revised the torpedo protection scheme of the Iowa class to address some of the design flaws, such as the rigidity of the lower belt armor causing leakage in adjacent compartments in the event of a torpedo hit. The revised scheme had improvements such as removing knuckles in certain holding bulkheads. These alterations were estimated to improve both the Illinois and the Kentucky's torpedo protection by as much as 20%. Funding for the battleships was provided by King Neptune, a Hereford swine auctioned across the state of Illinois as a fundraiser, ultimately helping to raise $19 million in war bonds. Illinois' construction was put on hold in 1942 after the Battle of Coral Sea and Midway. While the Bureau of Ships considered an aircraft carrier conversion proposal for Illinois and Kentucky, as proposed, the converted Illinois would have had an 860-foot long by 108-foot wide flight deck with an armament identical to the carriers of the Essex-class, 4 twin 5-inch gun mounts and 4 more 5-inch guns in a single mount, along with 6 40mm quadruple mounts. It was abandoned after the design team decided that the conversion carriers would carry fewer aircraft than the Essex-class, that more Essex-class carriers could be built in the same amount of time to convert the battleships, and that the conversion project would be significantly more expensive than new Essexes. Instead, the Illinois and Kentucky were completed as battleships, but their construction was given a very low priority. Ultimately, the ship was canceled August 11, 1945, when she was about 22% complete. She was struck from the Naval Vessel Registry on August 12, 1945. Her incomplete hull initially was retained on the belief that it could be used as a target in a nuclear weapons test. However, the sum $30 million it would cost to complete the ship, enough to be able to launch her, proved too great and the plan was abandoned. She remained in the dockyard until September 1958. When she was broken up on the builder's ways. The ship's bell, inscribed USS Illinois 1946, is now in the Memorial Stadium at the University of Iowa. The bell is traditionally rung by the NROTC members when the football team scores a touchdown or goal. Thank you for watching the history of the USS Illinois. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and share your thoughts on this ship or any others you like. We'll see you here next Saturday at 0600. Have a good day.